Hey guys, Harrison, I'm back at it once again for a brand new video for you, and welcome to the first proper episode in a long time of Dre Talks. Just a series of videos that I like to make, you know, kind of off topic, things that aren't necessarily sporting related, featuring games I don't normally play. I've been waiting to do a bit of a FIFA 14 video for a while now, so I thought, with the recent news of what's happened in the Premier League, I thought now would be the good time to actually, you know, go out there and do one, as well as just talking about something which I've noticed a lot recently when it comes not just to FIFA, just in football in general and other sports I'm a fan of, and how they deal with certain things. But for those people that are asking me about FIFA 14, I'm probably not going to do any full-on videos for it this year, because I always start well, but then I never get around to actually finishing them. I know there's a pocket of you guys out there that like me playing FIFA and whatnot, but I have a new attitude of, if I don't feel I can give it my best shot, given the amount of series I already run on this channel, it's probably not worth me doing. So yeah, maybe next year we'll have to wait and see how I feel, you know, what kind of time I've got when it comes to making videos, and I'm already limited as it is. Anywho, in this video I wanted to talk about concussions, and for those people that already noticed I'm talking about football, you probably already know what this is going to be about. For those who don't know what happened, it happened last Sunday I believe. It was the Tottenham versus Everton Premier League football game, soccer for those guys outside of the UK that are not 100% sure what I'm talking about here. It was a Tottenham-Everton game in the Premier League, and there was a moment where there was a loose ball and Everton was on the attack, and Romelu Lukaku, the Everton striker, was going towards goal, and the goalkeeper for Tottenham, Hugo Lloris, came off his line, obviously as a goalkeeper does, and goes for the ball. He's gone in, he's dived, he's gone for the ball to try and collect it up. I'm sure we've seen it hundreds of times in football matches, and hundreds of times while playing FIFA as well. I'm sure you know what it's like. Goalkeepers diving to, you know, to try and basically, you know, use his body as a shield to collect the ball and stop the player. You know, player maybe might trip over the ball a little bit, but you know, it happens all the time in football. This one didn't quite go according to plan. What happened was, as Lloris has gone in for the ball and dived, his head collided brutally with Romelu Lukaku's knee. Pretty much knocked Lloris clean out. This isn't the first time this has happened in recent memory. For those older football fans who may know, a very similar thing happened to Petr Cech a few years ago, where Stephen Hunt had gone in for the ball, and by accident, obviously they've both gone for the ball, they're both committed to trying to get the ball. His knee collided with Petr Cech's head, knocked him out for a while, injured him for a while, but he came back and he still has to wear a protective helmet to this day, and that was about 8 years ago now. Still wears the helmet to this day to protect himself from future concussions and future injury and whatnot. But yeah, it seemed that at the time Lloris had suffered a concussion. He was down for about 5 or 6 minutes, but Lloris wanted to keep going after they gave him treatment for what seemed to be a concussion, or, you know, at least a pretty serious blow to the head. He was checked out, but then Lloris wanted to keep going. He wasn't substituted, but a lot of people, you know how a lot of, you know, football fans have this old school mentality of, oh, you know, he's brave, he's courageous, he's a hero for wanting to keep going, and you know, it's one of those things where I think this applies to a lot when it comes to sport and athletes, how we tend to praise them more often for battling through injury. You know, guys like Kevin Ware in the NCAA, when he broke his leg, he came back yesterday from that situation. Or, you know, like in the NFL, like we go, oh, props to that guy for playing through an injury. Or, you know, like when a Tony Romo or a Ben Roethlisberger injures his ribs or plays with a broken ribs, and they're playing with flat jackets. And it's like, oh, he's brave for playing through that. And, you know, oh, and these guys, he's playing for a concussion. He's a hero. You know, he's manly and things like that. And I find these things a bit concerning. Like, bravado in, this sense of bravado we get when it comes to athletes and their health. And if they play while weakened, it makes them a better player, or it makes them it gets them more respect. I'm not sure whether I'm inclined to agree with that view per se, because I didn't really know about the effect of concussions in sport very much. I mean, the first time I'd ever seen something like that happen was Petr Cech, when he got knocked out by Stephen Hunt by accident, in a very, very similar incident actually, which I'm surprised people haven't mentioned. But the crazy thing is that I'm also a huge fan of the NFL, and I've only really started following the sport properly, like on a hardcore kind of level, for maybe 3 or 4 seasons now. And it was through watching the NFL and following more of the NFL media and American coverage of it that I realized more about the impact of concussions in sport. And I'm a huge, well, I wouldn't say fan, but I'm glad that the steps are being taken by the NFL to take a greater measure against concussions, because they're serious. And being a sporting fan and being a fan of a wide range of sports, the threat of concussions seems to be getting bigger and bigger, and more people are raising awareness of this issue now. And Hugo Lloris definitely brought this issue to the forefront in, obviously taking a nasty blow to the head. And, wanting to keep going was what made it so newsworthy. And now, AVB, if there's a chance, Andre Villas-Boas, Tottenham manager, and, the coaches are going to be of the attitude of, if the guy wants to keep playing and, he looks like he's in half-decent shape, they're going to want to keep him on the field because, Tottenham are going to want to win the game. It will think it was a goal to straw in the end. Which, it may not have been if Lloris had to been substituted for Brad Friedel, who is 41 years old and is nowhere near as good a goalkeeper. So you have to wonder, is AVB going to take him off? Probably not. And then there's guys like Stan Collymore, who used to play the football and is now a journalist and world-famous dogger. Saying things like, they're trying to defend this decision by saying like, bravado's bold, Lloris is brave, he should be applauded for wanting to keep playing and wanting to help his team get the win. And it's like, these is people's lives you're dealing with here. You can't be saying, we shouldn't be praising Lloris for being a hero. We should, quite frankly, we should be having a go at AVB, the Tottenham staff, the medical team, for not doing the right thing and taking him off the field. It was clearly unsafe for him to play. What if he banged his head again, like trying to punch out a corner or something like that, when the guy's clearly concussed? He was down for minutes. It wasn't seconds. He was down for minutes. I heard there is, according to Raphael Honigstein of the PFA, a football journalist, apparently the PFA has a rule where if a player is unconscious when they treat him, you have to take him off. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing a rule where if a player is concussed, you get a free substitution, you get to take him off the field for his own safety. I wouldn't mind seeing a rule like that happen, because it's not a tactical advantage by having 4 substitutions if the guy you're taking off is literally unsafe to play. I mean, I know it's hard to differentiate between that and a footballing injury like a broken leg or, a hamstring or something like that. But if it's a concussion, they shouldn't be allowed to play. I know Greg Houlihan in the Norwich United game, I think a couple of weeks ago, had a concussion as well. He took a nasty blow to it, and he had to be substituted off, and he was taken to hospital, which I'm glad they did, because these things need to be checked out properly, because the threat of brain damage has now become even bigger as a result of extensive research and money put into these programs. And concussions are causing long-term brain damage. The very sad story I remember in the NFL was when Junior Seau committed suicide. Junior Seau was a linebacker who played, I think, in the NFL for about 20 years. He played for the Chargers and I think for the New England Patriots for a little while as well. And he shot himself. He committed suicide, he killed himself, and they checked out his brain, and apparently he had long-term brain damage. And what was causing the brain damage was all the hits to the head he'd taken during his NFL career. Now, if anyone watches the NFL, you'll know physically it might be the most brutal sport on the planet in terms of damage guys take, and injuries and long-term. We're still seeing the long-term effects now, like players who are, who can't walk properly, who may be in wheelchairs now, who have permanently damaged knees, are still hurting years after playing the game, and now we're seeing the effects of long-term brain damage, and players that are still suffering the long-term effects of this brain damage by taking all these hits to the head. I think it was a player who used to play for the Chiefs that had a massive rant on Twitter the other day talking about these injuries, saying how the NFL didn't treat them right, and the NFL recently settled a massive lawsuit. I think it was something in the region of $900 million towards these people that were suing the league out of medical issues, out of brain damage and concussions and all these long-term issues, and these things are going to keep coming up. Like, I know in professional wrestling, in the WWE, the WWE are taking a stronger stance against concussions. I know if you're a wrestler and you take a concussion, you're out of action for at least 2 weeks. AJ Lee got one recently. Dolph Ziggler, I think, had one. Where if you have a concussion now, you're out of action for a little while, and I'm glad that certain other sports and entertainment industries like the WWE are taking greater measures against this. The NFL are doing that now, where if they think you suffered a concussion on the field, they have independent doctors on the sidelines, doctors that don't represent a football team, like independent doctors in general, that are going to check you out, and if they think you can't play, you're done for the day, and it may be longer than that if your concussion effects are longer. MMA, like I know people are talking about this a lot more in mixed martial arts, especially with TRT use, fair use of testosterone recently in MMA, where that has an effect on the lining of the brain as well. So that we're going to see that in the long term, maybe in the next 10 to 15 years, we'll see what effect, obviously taking punches to the head quite often does for the game. And, we've seen it before already in boxing, how people are affected by that as well. Because, boxing is another dangerous, very brutal sport. Because obviously you get punched in the head over 36 minutes with 8-ounce gloves. So it's one of those things where if all these sports are taking measures to stop this from happening, or trying to make their sports safer by trying to limit the risk of concussions and then having the proper course of treatment for when they do happen, why is the Premier League so far behind in this? Like, why is it that there shouldn't be biased doctors taking medical attention when it comes to players with concussions? Because they're going to encourage if there's a chance the guy will keep playing, then they're going to keep him on the field. You know what I mean? So why is the Premier League so far behind in this, and why is the media some of the media trying to act like, he should be applauded and, be lauded as a hero for doing something that was actually extremely dangerous? It's one of those things I feel conflicted about the whole thing, because as a guy that follows a lot of sports, I see much better examples of how to deal with these things in other sports. So it saddens me that the biggest sport in this country, the United Kingdom, and that's the sport of soccer, why are they so far behind? Like, I wish they had a better course of action to deal with it. I mean, that's how I feel in the situation anyway, and it's something I feel very strongly about as a fan of sport. I want to see these guys play to the best of their ability, and most importantly, be safe while doing so. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say on this matter as well. If there's any other examples you guys would like to mention, as a discussion point, and we can get talking about this, that would be great. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say as always, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I mean, I'm having a lot of fun playing FIFA 14 Ultimate Team. The Serie A team I've got going is so much fun at the moment. Gonzalo Higuain and Mario Gomez is such a dangerous strike force. I'm really glad that FIFA 14 doesn't build itself around pace so much this year, so you can use slower and more well-rounded strikers like a Mario Gomez, rather than teams building around speed using players like Daniel Sturridge all the time, or, you know, Javier Hernandez, you know, Chicharito and Aubameyang and all these really fast players. You don't need fast players up front anymore, and the game isn't so dictated around pace, which is always a good thing as well. But yeah, I've been Harrison 101. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and let's get some discussion going as always. And until next time, thanks for watching, and sayonara.
He went in well.